Hello, it's Lori with the Eclectic Green Witchery, and I decided to make a podcast slash video type of thing today on one of the articles that I had written before. It's out of control, and I think it needs some more attention. Attention in a good way, to try to limit the amount of times I see this happening. I'm just trying to give a different perspective. So here, let's get into it. Gatekeeping. There are no gatekeepers unless you give them the power to gatekeep. And that can be applied to anything in life. I know we say words have power, but they only have power if you give them the power. So my background is health coaching. And in all my years of teaching health coaching, I've always tried to incorporate getting people to stop, take a moment to breathe, and look at things with a different perspective. I try to teach people to be more proactive and less reactive. And I know that's difficult to do in these trying times of 2020. But my teaching in witchcraft is no different. I always try to give a different perspective. I myself always try to look at things in a different perspective. And it's not always an easy task to do, but I certainly do try. As a society, we've all come accustomed to conversing with one another through texts and memes. This can make having a conversation extremely challenging and frustrating. No tones can be heard through texting except for the ones that we project onto it. Even if the other person meant no harm by it, if we're having a bad day, guess what emotions we're projecting onto that text? That's right. Bad. With that said, let's bring a new perspective and dive into another hot, controversial topic in the witch community. Dun dun dun! That's my dramatic music. Gatekeeping. Gatekeeping, what is it? It's the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. First off, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It's dramatic because people make it that way, or they take it the wrong way. But how does this word gatekeeping apply to the witch community? There are some people out there that feel very strongly that it's their place to tell other witches how to practice their craft or what to believe in the craft. They can even go as far as belittling another witch for the way they practice, which, by the way, you should never belittle another person, period, no matter what the topic. So, for example, I was explaining a method of one of the rituals that I perform, and after someone had watched the video, I received a message. Now, in the blog article that I wrote, I didn't go into detail about the message. I was very vague about what was sent to me. But it was vile. I was being called names. I was stupid for teaching people that I was using a lighter to light my candle instead of a match because it wasn't a natural source of fire. I'm pretty sure that if our ancestors had an easier way of lighting a candle, they would have chosen that. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit taken aback with the message I received. And my first instinct was to blast them back. But I'm trying really hard to be a better person. So instead of retaliating with anger, I took a minute. I remembered what I'm trying to teach people and applied it to myself. I took a moment. I breathed. I analyzed the message, and I came to a conclusion. A, I will use whatever I want. It's my practice. B, using a lighter over matches doesn't make the spell work any less. See? Calm down and explain. So I took away 2 things and learned from that moment. Don't get mad because someone said something to me that I didn't agree with. It's my practice. They gave advice. I didn't care for the advice, so I didn't take it. The end. Moving on. I also took some time to explain to this person there was a better method of reaching out to me other than belittling me and demanding I do what they thought was the right way. Surprisingly, they were receptive to my response and apologized. So I felt like 2 people walked away that day with a lesson learned. Had they not taken my response well and came at me again viciously, I would have ended the conversation there. At that point, you just don't engage with someone like that. They clearly aren't interested in any way but their way. Learn to pick your battles, especially on the internet. At the end of the day, I will practice how I want, no matter what anyone says to me. It's as simple as that. We as humans evolved over time, and so should our craft. And as I said, if the ancestors had an easier way to do something, I am sure they would have been all over that method in a heartbeat. I also refuse to start a fire with caveman methods. I'm not going to be out back hitting 2 rocks together. Now back to gatekeeping. If you come into a witch group on Facebook or any other social media platform and ask for advice, expect to get advice. Albeit, more than not, you will get answers you don't like. Will you get people that seem like they have an elitist vibe? Yep. Will you get people that will belittle you and answer with their egos? Yep. Will you get people that give you great advice? You sure will. Will you get people that will give you horrible advice? Oh yeah. But you know what? It is all okay. All of it. Every answer you get. Just learn to take what serves you well and leave behind what doesn't. But don't go into the group now screaming, "Gatekeeper!" No, it's not gatekeeping. I will explain why, and I'm going to keep this extremely simple and to the point. Gatekeeping is the activity of controlling and limiting general access to something. No one in a social media setting is controlling you or your practice. The only one controlling you is you. People can say or type whatever they want to you, but it doesn't mean that they have any control, quote unquote, gatekeeping, power over you and your practice. No matter how you practice, you're doing it right. Ignore the haters and the people who tell you you should do this or that. Trust your gut and trust your instinct when it comes to your craft, and you will be doing just fine and dandy. But if you've never opened a book, never studied, never researched one thing about witchcraft, I highly recommend you not dive into spellcasting as your first witchy deed. Read, research, center, and ground. Learn, read more, research more, put in the work, then do the spells. Laurie, you just did gatekeeping. No, I gave advice. Take it or leave it. The power is yours to take or to leave. Witchcraft is not some Harry Potter movie. It's a spiritual practice and should be treated sacred. It's a practice where all mundane things should be exhausted first, then and only then you try the witchy part. Witchcraft is not for fixing all of life's problems. Sometimes you, as a person, have to fix your own problems and change thought patterns before moving on to the next step. Anyway, I digress, as usual. Gatekeeping. Stop throwing that word around like it has power. It doesn't, plain and simple. It only has power if you allow it to have power, and then you proceed to follow the advice that the gatekeeper was spewing. I'm using the term gatekeeper loosely here. I don't believe there are gatekeepers, but I will use it here so that we all know who I am talking about. Gatekeepers are people who will tell you what to read or shouldn't read. They will tell you what to believe and what not to believe. They will tell you how you should practice, how you should stand, how you should sit, how to leave offerings. The list goes on and on and on. But again, at the end of the day, you take what you want and leave behind what you don't want. There are no gatekeepers unless you make them that. Witchcraft is unique to each practitioner, as we all do things slightly different. Practicing differently doesn't make it wrong. And of course you will get people that say, don't do that, it's wrong. Don't take it personally. Some people simply cannot articulate well and or are just blunt about how they type. Or maybe they want to answer you but don't have enough time to type all the details, so it sounds bossy. It's nothing more, nothing less. Stop reading into hidden messages in everything. There are no gatekeepers, and not everything is terrible. Speaking of not taking things personally, I highly recommend you read the 4 agreements. One of the agreements is just that. Don't take anything personally. This part is for the quote-unquote gatekeepers. If someone comes into a group and asks for advice, and we feel compelled to teach people, we could say something like, I've never seen this done that way before. Can you explain why you do it this way? Presenting it this way makes you less egotistical and threatening, and it also opens up the conversation so that maybe you could learn something new in the process. It also encourages the novice to engage with the elders without feeling stupid. The elders should be doing everything in their power to encourage the next generation to practice, to encourage questions, to encourage a teaching environment, not creating an environment where they're afraid to ask questions. The elders should be willing to teach the old ways, but also allowing themselves to be open to embrace new ideas and thoughts. The elders should be teaching, not belittling. Lead by example, not by ego. Or if you see someone doing something that would be counterproductive to their goals, you could offer advice such as, I do it like this because X, Y, and Z. Don't just say, well, I do it like this, without an explanation. Take the time to explain why you do it that way. When presenting your opinion, do so in a non-demanding and threatening way. Presenting yourself with a more educational manner will surely be met with listening ears rather than mirrored attitudes. Both sides of this coin can certainly give and take things a lot better. Both sides can practice listening, practice leaving egos at the door, practice being receptive to new ways, old ways, and ideas. And please stop calling people who are truly trying to educate gatekeepers. There are no gatekeepers. We all need to start lifting each other up. I've said it before, as witches, we are healers, not destroyers. We have all made mistakes and will more than likely make many more in our lifetime. That is part of the learning process, trial and error. However, we also need to learn that egos often get in the way. I like to say ego, take off the E and let it go. We are all still learning, all of us. I don't care how long you've been practicing, there is always room for learning and growth. Remember, there are no gatekeepers. Until next time, live, love, and magic.